Hey, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me on Crime Crunchies and my true crime news compilation show. It's crunch time. I am your host, Courtney C., a 27-year veteran of the media, and I'm so happy to have you here today on Crunch Time with me. Please make sure to subscribe, like, follow, shake your booty, oh yeah, and all of those good things. So I had planned to start off today talking about my updates on Nancy Guthrie, but I just ran across some very alarming information about Asa Ellerup, the ex-wife of Rex Heuermann, who has just pled guilty to 8 counts of murder. And I'm sorry, I had to stop in my tracks and just change everything up. So let me share my screen. I do not understand this woman. I cannot believe my little eyeballs. But Michael Ruiz, who I was going to pull up because he always has really good coverage of the latest of, there's Sosha, the true crime kitty. Michael Ruiz with Fox News Digital always has really good updates on Nancy Guthrie, and I'm on his X because I was going to refer to some of his posts. And here we go. Let's just dive right in. House of Secrets. Gilgo Beach killer's ex-wife moves into the basement where Heuermann confessed to dismembering victims. Asa Ellerup says she visits the room as an act of atonement. I am really sorry for what these victims went through, is a quote. Heuermann pled guilty April 8th to 7 murders, but I believe there was an 8th that they had him plead for. That, I mean, I cannot believe this. Here we have, I'm stunned. I don't understand this woman. I think there's something wrong with her. First of all, because she didn't believe that her husband was capable of such crimes, which, I understand. You know, she says he was her hero, but there was so much evidence against him. Talk about stand by your man. But here is another post from Michael Ruiz. House of Horrors. Asa Ellerup, the ex-wife of confessed Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann, said in a new docuseries episode that she moved into her former husband's so-called kill room just over a month ago after he confessed to her, but before he changed his plea. Who would do that? Here's a quote. The brutal truth is that Rex Heuermann said he dismembered the bodies in this room. This is Asa talking. This is the brutal truth. Okay, now there's me. I'm in this room, and I'm here because I do feel spiritual. I am trying to say spiritually in my own way that I'm really sorry. I can understand that she shouldn't feel responsible. She obviously claims she had no idea that this had been going on. And I can imagine that she is, truly horrified that since he's confessed to her, it looks like. But I don't know that I'm going to move into the basement. You know what I would have done? I would have moved out of the house. Okay. Just me. Maybe you guys disagree. I probably would have moved out as soon as I divorced the man, because here's the deal. That house is probably paid for. It was his parents' house. It's a little bit of a fixer-upper. But somebody probably would buy it just to tear it down. Okay, she probably could sell it. and make enough money to leave town. The fact that she's even still in that house, in just let alone the condition, okay, just the condition of the house. And then adding on to that, knowing what happened in the house, I don't get it. But no, she one-ups everyone and says publicly in a docuseries that she's moved into the basement. So, oh Lordy. Okay, continuing on. This is in this docuseries I have not watched, but it says every night she passes a massive black mag light affixed to the wall at the top of the stairs and makes her way down into the cellar where police spent days digging for evidence after her husband's arrest in the summer of 2023. So it sounds like there's not even a proper light. She had to duct tape a flashlight on the stairs. Oh, Lord. Huerman has admitted to killing 8 women between 1993 and 2010. 7 of the murders took place in a vault in the family's Massapequa Park basement. 3 victims there were dismembered. Their remains were all dumped in remote areas of Long Island, most of them near the infamous Gilgo Beach. Here's more from Asa. It's not so much in the sense that she wants to know Rex, the serial killer. Ellerup's lawyer, Bob Macedonio, tells Fox News Digital she wants to know that side of Rex and also get to know herself and how she missed all this in 30 years. And I mean, I understand. She obviously has some soul searching to do, and I certainly don't fault her for that. But why would she want to know that side of Rex? It's almost like she's, I don't know, it's like she's covering her body in the negativity. And I mean, I'm just picturing her. She's not, I'm, and this is just all my opinion and I'm just speculating here, but I'm picturing her almost going down there to connect with what happened, to like let it wash over her. Maybe she's envisioning what happened in that room. Maybe she's picturing what happened in that room. But again, what normal person is going to go there, not just mentally, but physically into the room and just sleep down there? Okay. That is just, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong. Prosecutors say the murders took place while Ellerup was out of town. One took place days before their destination wedding, when Huerman stayed behind for several days as his wife flew to Europe to prepare. And here's the deal. It's a good thing that Rex Huerman pled, because they're going to find so many more victims that are associated with him. There's no way that there's just this many. There's no way that he stopped. He's probably one of the longest reigning serial killers in American history. And during his pleading, he claims that they, met their maker due to strangulation. I don't think so. I do not think so. I think anybody has to be naive to think that in his sick mind is how he ended them. I don't think so. I think that he prettied that up, and there's no way to make it TV friendly, probably what he did. So I guess we'll just go with that. We'll just go with strangulation. But Ellerup probably knows. Who knows what details she has in her brain, but the fact that she's now sleeping in the basement and goes into that room, again, that's not right. There's something wrong. And I understand why Peacock is following her around. I'm sure that people, this is great TV, but this is not a good look. I will just say that that is not a good look. So there's that. I'm moving on, getting to the posts on X that I had wanted to, but finding all these little Easter eggs here. And the next post that I see is from Michael Ruiz. It looks like there is a book coming out from Christopher Whitcomb, and I'm not sure who he is, but it's called Broken Plea. And Michael Ruiz says, why did Bryan Kohberger plead guilty? How was his defense planning on fighting the knife sheath DNA? Former FBI agent Christopher Whitcomb, in his new book on the Idaho student murders, Broken Plea, raises red flags from defense experts who never got to testify about their conclusions at trial after the quadruple murderer made an unexpected guilty plea. Michael Ruiz says, I spoke with Whitcomb and Dr. Brent Turvey, a criminologist hired by the defense, about their concerns, which begin with the chain of custody surrounding the prosecution's chief piece of evidence, the K-bar knife sheath found at the scene. It is plausible for someone to argue that the chain of custody would have led to significant problems for the prosecution in presenting evidence of any kind of DNA. And if that were to be excluded, then you have a white car and you have the cell tower pings. Kohberger pled guilty on July 2nd, 2025, and waived his right to appeal. He said in court he was not coerced or promised anything in exchange for the plea. The book, which drops next Tuesday, reveals other previously undisclosed evidence in the case and asked Turvey why Kohberger pled out. So I'm not sure if this is saying that they didn't have enough evidence because, honestly, other than the DNA, if the sheath DNA wasn't a match, I mean, they didn't have a lot. They had circumstantial, and there are a lot of people who have come out and still claim that he's not the right person, although I would have to do a lot more research before I went there. But he pled guilty. I mean, and there's been a lot of talk that the prosecution, while it's not bad that he pled and it's saving the victim's family, who is what I'm really concerned about is the victims' families and their feelings and having to go through this. The prosecution didn't really have a lot of experience, and it is a gamble. If it's a jury trial and you've got, one or two people that is saying it's just not enough evidence for me, he could have walked. He could have been acquitted. And I do think that it's not bad that the prosecution took a plea. The problem is they should have gotten more information out of Kohberger. And it makes me wonder, why the prosecution didn't dive deeper into their, what they were getting. It seems like Kohberger got a good deal. So I'm not sure. I need to look into this before I make any opinions, because I'm not sure exactly what, from just this post, I'm not sure what the argument is. I'm not sure. So more to come on that. Zosha, the crime-fighting kitty, is shaking the table. Zosha, the crime-fighting kitty. All right. So what I wanted to talk about this morning or this afternoon is Nancy Guthrie, because I am a Nancy Guthrie fanatic, and I'm still in Nancy's corner. I'm not leaving Nancy alone. Neither is Brian Enton. Neither is Michael Ruiz. And boy, along with Nancy Guthrie comes little Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, little nano man. Okay. And he is a puke. We had talked about last week that the Pima County Board of Supervisors was going to have Sheriff Nanos under oath talk about how he fudged his resume, which showed that he left the El Paso Police Department in 1984. Whoopsie. See, this is what the kitty's doing here. Sorry, guys. Sheriff Nanos left El Paso in 1984, but he did not. Au contraire, mon cher. He left in 1982 because he either needed to resign or he was going to be fired. So, and he also probably during interviews or on questionnaires in his hiring onboarding paperwork needed to talk about any disciplinary action, prior disciplinary actions and suspensions. And he claimed he didn't have any, but maybe the worst thing that he could possibly have in his history is that he was a bad driver. So, apparently, Michael has posted 81 days into the search for Nancy Guthrie. Lawyers for Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos have submitted a 12-page written response to concerns about his prior employment record, allegations of perjury, and financial concerns from the Pima County Board supervisors. So I want to read this. It looks like we've got several. Let me go full story. We've got a full story. Let's read the story first, and then I want to read the documents. So Sheriff leading Nancy Guthrie probe admits quitting past police job to dodge
the sheriff
discipline.
leading the Nancy Guthrie case is facing a massive recall effort as frustrated local demand.
Let's see if
answers.
this is.
I'm looking for people to
All right.
help us out.
This is a video that they keep putting in these articles, but it has nothing to do with what we're talking about. So we're going to quit that video. So let's read. Chris Nanos' lawyer says he misunderstood. Oh, he did. A deposition question about his disciplinary history, which is interesting because Chris Nanos is the best, the brightest, the smartest, the biggest, the sexiest, the hunkiest. Oh my gosh. In his car, he doesn't do anything wrong, guys. So this is surprising that he didn't understand some questions. Well, let's read. Okay, the lawyer for Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, who is helming the months-long search for missing Nancy Guthrie, has responded to a list of concerns from local leaders about the top cops' leadership. Nanos acknowledged through his attorney that he resigned from the El Paso Police Department in 1982 to avoid a 3-day suspension for insubordination while defending apparent inconsistencies in his sworn deposition testimony about his disciplinary history. And of course, he's going to defend it because he is a narcissistic sociopath. My opinion. On April 7th, the Pima County Board of Supervisors demanded the sheriff answer questions after allegations of perjury emerged following his deposition in a First Amendment lawsuit brought against him by the president of the Pima County Deputies Association, Sergeant Aaron Cross. Nanos stated under oath that he had never been suspended as a result of disciplinary action while working as a law enforcement officer. I mean, just look at him. Look at that chiseled jaw. Ugh. Blah. According to an April 21st letter from his lawyer, James Cool. Oh my gosh. James Cool. His attorney is James Cool. And he's cool. Woo. He misunderstood the question. Oh, no. Nanos has never been suspended from the Pima County Sheriff's Department in a career that began in 1984. Well, no, you know why? Because it's the thin blue line. And for some reason, he got in, and these cops at the Sheriff's Department are even better at covering up. There's no way in this world, in this paradigm, that Sheriff Nanos' behavior improved and was remarkably the opposite of his anger and beating a man who ended up in ICU. And no, there's no way that his behavior didn't stop. This department's culture, I believe, has covered it up. Okay, Nanos has never been suspended since his career that began in 1984. Cool, his attorney Cool, acknowledged that he was suspended repeatedly in his prior role at the El Paso Police Department in Texas, a job he resigned from in 1982 to avoid further disciplinary action. And I'm not going to read ahead. I'm going to guess that Sheriff Nanos is going to say that he got picked on and it was retaliation and that he didn't deserve it. So his attorney continues, quote, "It is 100% correct that Sheriff Nanos was never suspended during his 4 decades of decorated and faithful service with the Pima County Sheriff's Department," Cool wrote in a 12-page letter to the board. However, Sheriff Nanos was suspended more than 40 years ago while employed by El Paso Police Department. In the context of his live deposition, Sheriff Nanos did not understand the question related to discipline with a different agency not governed by the Arizona Peace Officers Bill of Rights. No, bull pucky. Nanos' lawyer accused Cross and former PCSD Lieutenant Heather Lappin, Nanos' most recent election challenger, of sustained findings of misconduct. "Chock full of lies," Cross said of Cool's letter. And I agree with that. It is chock full of lies. But did you notice it wasn't a sworn statement as required, which is what the county supervisors wanted him deposed under oath. He needed to be sworn in. And what Cross is saying is that this response by Nano's attorney is not a sworn statement. Interesting. So, wow, that's kind of sneaky. The board voted on April 7th to have Nanos answer questions under oath. County board members have questioned whether Nanos used his position to interfere with the election and wrongfully targeted Lappin for investigation during the campaign. It's like, that's obvious. Attached to the letter, Cool included a copy of a March 11th note from the Justice Department informing County Administrator Jan Lesher that the former U.S. Attorney for Arizona under the Biden administration found no federal predicate for a criminal investigation into the election allegations. No federal predicate, but I don't know. I think that leaves room. We have no further response to provide beyond what was already communicated in December 2024. Current U.S. Attorney for the District of Arizona, Timothy Courtrain wrote, Cool defended Nanos's handling of the Sheriff's Department budget, argued that the sheriff should not have to answer all of the board's questions in a public setting, and downplayed concerns of retaliation against Cross and Lappin. Both of them have pending lawsuits. Well, we know Cross was retaliated again because this is a highly experienced law enforcement officer, and I think he's answering phones at a desk right now. Cool also included a copy of Nanos' 1984 resume, which lists his hobbies as boxing, fishing, pool, crosswords, and physical exercise. Don't we know? We're so lucky. Thank you, Sheriff Nanos, for working out that bod. After leaving the El Paso Police Department, Nanos worked briefly in sales and then as a security guard before joining the PCSD in 1984 as a corrections officer. Now, that one, I believe. He actually looks like he'd be a great used car salesman. So that actually tracks, guys. That tracks. All right, Guthrie is believed to have been abducted from her home. So there's the story. And I mean, talk about throwing up in your mouth. I really want to look at the documents. So let's see. This is page 7. Courtrain. Where's the first page? Come on, Michael. Come on, Mike. I want to read it. I want to read the goodies. Let me refresh and see if I can get this. Let me go back and see if maybe I was in the wrong spot. Talk amongst yourselves. Page 7. I want to read all the documents. Let me see. Maybe he's got them here. All right. So let me read. I also attached is the filing in Nanos' handwritten 1984 resume, which lists his hobbies after leaving the El Paso. Handwritten. All right. Here's his resume. It looks like it's typed. We didn't have technology back then. Also attached is a March 11th letter from the Justice Department Information County Administrator Jan Lesher that said there was no federal predicate. Okay, and that's fine. I think this is all just a bunch of hooey patooey. I wish we had all of it. Well, I'll read page 7 then. Okay, this is from the lawyer, Mr. Cool. Mr. Cool. Any appearance of impropriety that resulted from former Lieutenant Lappin's placement on administrative leave is the unfortunate result of a 2024 change to county policy that allowed county employees to run for county office without leaving their jobs. Before 2024, employees vying for county office were placed on leave without pay to ensure that their political aspirations did not prevent them from doing their jobs nor adversely affect the operation of their department. It is not surprising that the first election following this regrettable change in policy showcased the predictable ways in which active employees running for county office can adversely impact departmental operations. In order to strengthen current processes, the sheriff plans to meet with county Administrator Lesher to discuss amending. All right, so basically what he's saying is that there was a policy. All right. Okay, so let me close these out. I think I might have just read this. Sheriff leading Nancy Guthrie probe admits quitting. Yes, I did just read this one. Sheriff Nanos believes he was targeted. All right, let's watch this video. This is a video I wanted to share. So let's watch this.
So the sheriff leading the Nancy Guthrie case is facing a massive recall effort as frustrated local demand answers.
I'm looking for people to
Oh,
help
this
us
guy
out,
keeps
get
coming up. Hopefully,
involved.
hold on. Let's fast forward.
Developments, you know, they're not happy with the sheriff, but does this help us get Nancy back home?
No, this is
Well, I
that
think the most
video.
hopeful thing,
They
Lawrence,
keep
is the
doing this
information
video.
about
Let me
the
close
two
this out.
dates. Now,
They tease me with this video and it's not the right one. All right, there has been, and I think Nancy Grace had a show late last week where she was talking about, she had resources saying that there had been a suspect detained. So let's see if we can find out anything about it. Nancy Guthrie Sheriff addresses report a suspect was finally detained after claims of a bombshell breakthrough. And I think it's a nothing burger, but let's read. Reports on the Nancy Guthrie investigation have been few and far between in the last few weeks. Other than the DNA hair, the investigation into the disappearance of Savannah Guthrie's mom, who vanished sometime between the night of January 31st and the early hours of February 1st, continues, but there has not been any big development at any point in the investigation. Police never identified a suspect or disclosed a motive until now, ? In the past few days, there were reports that a person of interest had been detained in connection with the investigation. But sadly, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos has confirmed that that is not so. Fox News Digital investigative reporter Michael Ruiz shared on X that Nanos' response to that questioning had been pretty clear. Nope. News Nation contributor Jennifer Coffendaffer said the same. According to Sheriff Nanos, no one was detained last night in Nancy's case, despite some people on social media reporting this. She also wrote on X. But where did the original reporting come from? Nancy Grace's Crime Stories podcast, where it was reported that there had been a bombshell in the case. Grace was citing uncorroborated reports that a male had been detained for questioning south of Tucson. And I watched that episode, and she was the only one who was reporting that. At the time, Crime Stories investigative reporter Dave Mack pointed to the fact that Hoda Kotb took over an interview with Anne Hathaway that Savannah Guthrie was set to conduct on Today as proof that she was pulled to be updated on the case. Reports from NBC had previously indicated that there was a protocol for informing Savannah of any news on the investigation so she wouldn't be in a position to provide the news herself. But now it seems that either had nothing to do with the investigation or there's something that isn't being disclosed yet, but that's not a positive ID on a suspect. This comes after confirmation that the FBI is examining mixed DNA samples recovered from the scene. There is no new DNA evidence in the Nancy Guthrie case. The FBI requested this material over 2 months ago, an FBI official said. The Pima County Sheriff's Office sent it to a private lab in Florida. 11 weeks later, that lab has now transferred an original hair sample to the FBI laboratory for testing. We remain fully committed to this investigation. Nano said that investigators remain hopeful that the mixed DNA evidence will lead them to somebody, but that it could take a while. We listened to our lab, and our lab tells us that there's challenges with it. And Nanos told NBC in February. He also said it could take weeks, months, or maybe a year. Experts at this point believe she won't be found alive. Dr. Gary Brucato, who specializes on analyzing criminal behavior patterns, said during a recent episode of The Interview Room that the statistics suggest that's a bad sentence. My sense is this woman passed away during whatever it was that was supposed to happen. Burkata said he also shared statistics indicating that the suspect or suspects is probably male and the motive was probably financial gain. And I think that we're all there with him. Which is a bummer, but I'm not surprised. Again, you know, watching Nancy Grace, she has good information. She gets good people on, but I had a feeling that was probably a far reach when she mentioned that they had somebody detained. So the other story, and then we're going to switch to Bryan Hooker and Lynette Hooker, a lab behind Gilgo Beach killer conviction believed to be involved in Nancy Guthrie abduction case. Genetic genealogist Cece Moore says she is pretty confident the FBI will want to use Astria forensics for the case. And if we all recall with Rex Heuermann, the way he was tied to the bodies on Gilgo Beach is that while he was very careful, there was a hair in the tape, in the bindings of the victims, and they were able to trace that hair back to either Asa Ellerup or his daughter. And it's very common with women, the hair, you know, long hair comes off, and it could have been in the truck, could have been anywhere in the home, and that makes sense. So FBI analyzing DNA in Nancy Guthrie case. Let me just read this really quick and then we'll watch the video. A San Francisco forensic lab. Here's Zosha, the crime fighting kitty. I'm a Zosha. Mwah. Go over here, Zosha, crime fighting kitty. San Francisco forensics lab that helped crack the Long Island serial killer case is now believed to be involved in the search for answers after the suspected abduction of Nancy Guthrie in Tucson, Arizona. Gilgo Beach killer Rex Heuermann, who admitted to killing 8 women between 1993 and 2010, pled guilty earlier this month after his defense failed to overcome groundbreaking DNA evidence collected from rootless hair samples. And this is precedent setting. What happened? That they accepted this, and it's going to affect law cases forever and a day. I am pretty confident that they will want to use the lab that they have been extremely successful which is Astrea, said Cece Moore, one of the nation's leading genetic genealogists at Parabon Nanolabs in Virginia. DLI has been working to refine their own rootless hair analysis, but I haven't seen any successful cases from them yet. But they have you know, they have been able to do something. So let's watch this segment and see what we can learn.
All right, as we reported last night, 11 U.S. scientists, some tied to highly sensitive government work, are now dead or missing.
This is weird too.
Very serious questions about national security. The White House has launched a probe into the mysterious disappearances, with President Trump now vowing to get answers within days, calling the situation pretty serious.
Yeah, it's
White
weird.
House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt wrote on X earlier today, the White House is actively working with
Let me go forward because I'm not sure. While this is interesting, this has nothing to do.
It was the disappearance of retired Air Force Major General McCaslin.
Which I was going to cover. I'm going to stop. I don't know why they're putting videos. You would think that this video is tied to the DNA for Nancy Guthrie, but it isn't. So I'm not sure. But all right, let's just move on. All right, we are going to switch gears now on It's Crunch Time and talk about another puke. Chris Nanos is a puke, but Bryan Hooker's, he is a puke as well. And the smartest thing he did, in my opinion, is get the heck out of the Bahamas, because I believe it is a matter of time before they get something more than circumstantial evidence on this man. And it's just not looking good for him. Okay. Again, everybody is innocent until proven guilty. And this is all circumstantial, but Lynette's daughter, Carly, had gone down, and Ashley Banfield did a lot of reporting from the actual area. And it was very helpful because at first the maps that we saw made it look like the bay that they were, puttering out of with the dinghy was really far from their boat, but it's actually not. It's actually really close to where they were. And the water was very calm on that side. The water is very choppy on the other side of the bay where the way the winds come in. But I mean, there's no way, especially Ashley Banfield's reporting showed that it was light until at least 8 o'clock. And Bryan Hooker is saying that they left the Abaco Inn about 7:30 and got in the dinghy. And by the time they rounded the corner, which is literally a minute or two away from where they would have tied up their dinghy by the Abaco Inn, that it was dark and that they got into choppy water and she bounced out of the boat. And there's just no world where that could have happened. There's no world where that could have happened. There's no reason, nothing logical that would state that that could have happened. And there's questions because the timing is off. We now have people who were there that day that have combed through their phones and they've found pictures that show a timestamp of Bryan and Lynette sitting by the pool, and that was at 6:38 p.m. And they're talking. It's hard to tell from their body language because she's on the chair and she's got her arms folded and he's bent over, kind of like maybe, I don't know if he's talking to her, or if they're having a serious conversation. If it doesn't sound like they were drinking a lot, but I mean, I know just in my own experience, I don't have alcoholics in my family, but I have been around an alcoholic, and it's weird because even if they have one drink, they start acting like they're inebriated. Okay. And this is just my experience, but even one drink, they act like they're inebriated. And per Ashley's reporting, we know that they had 2 drinks. I think it was Bacardi and Cokes. And, we don't know if he had any other drinks with him. That's just what they bought at the bar. But, is this premeditated? Did he have this planned? Were they arguing by the pool? Because we knew that things weren't going that great between them based on Lynette's texts to, family and friends that they had been fighting and who wouldn't. They both drank a lot. And apparently he had a temper when he would drink. And so, even if it was just 2 drinks, was that enough to trigger something in his mood or his personality to where they had an argument about something? Because it's clearly light out. He had mentioned before in a past text that he wished that he had just thrown her over the boat. And I'm not sure exactly if it was Lynette saying this or how, but I'm paraphrasing that he had mentioned in the past that he wished he'd just thrown her overboard. And he had choked her in the past, and he choked his own daughter in anger years before. So, it sounds like they both had problems. They both weren't good together. And honestly, something bad probably just happened. I'm sure he feels remorse because, he's got huge consequences now. There's no statute of limitations for murder. And we have extradite. I'm not even going to say they can extradite from the US down to the Bahamas. No problem. Bahamas are not very far away from Florida. So I can tell you that the latest I've heard is that he had flown after swearing that he was never going to leave and he was going to find her. His mother needed him and he flew to Sacramento and was with her, but she had chronic kidney issues and it was nothing new. And I believe that there are a lot of investigative journalists that called hospitals in the area, and she wasn't admitted. So it was a ruse. Okay. It's very obvious. The family wanted to get him out of the Bahamas. And honestly, again, that's the smartest thing he ever did because they were going to just wait and find something else and they were going to haul him back in. And apparently that's the MO. The police can hold you for 48 hours. It's not arresting, but it's putting them in, detaining them in custody, but he's stuck in jail. He can't leave while they're going out and they're, looking for more evidence that they then could charge him. And he was not ever going to be left alone if he had stayed, in my opinion. So it was smart that he left. But it just makes it look even worse for, consciousness of guilt. So the latest on him is that he has returned to his home in Michigan and has left his boat, just abandoned the boat in the Bahamas. I know that he had stated in a media interview that he didn't want to go back on the boat, that he was too upset. But there are a lot of people, and Ashley Banfield's reporting, she got with volunteer firefighters and workers that were there that morning with Bryan Hooker, and most of them state that he was more concerned about getting his dinghy back from Marsh Bay and getting it back on the boat than he was asking questions about his wife. And apparently during the first day or so, he would go around and ask people, for a boat to help him look, but people, would offer things up, but then he never really took them up on it. It just seemed like he was doing a lot of lip service on some things and not even lip service on a lot of things. Okay. The fact, if this is my loved one, my spouse, my family member, I'm going to do everything I can. But I mean, even now we know the evidence that he says he threw a life preserver to her, but we know now that it wasn't a life preserver. It was basically a waterproof cushion that they would sit on in the dinghy, and that's not a life preserver. And the second thing, the water was not choppy. You had to go far out into the ocean in order for it to be choppy, and that water is very, very shallow. Now, the other thing that has turned up is there's a video about 7 o'clock. Somebody had been videoing at the Abaco Inn, one of their family members while they're on vacation. And in the background, you can see Bryan Hooker crossing the street, and Lynette is not with him. She could have been going to the bathroom. She could have been following. I don't know if she was already gone at that point. But another video or image has shown up just today, Ashley Banfield showed, where somebody's taking a picture and you see Lynette by the pool. It's bright and sunny out, and she's taking a selfie, and you can see her Apple Watch on her wrist. Well, supposedly the mother was told that her Apple Watch was found on a beach. So I don't exactly know how her Apple Watch, I don't think it's going to float. I've never used an Apple Watch in water, so I don't know if it would float. It looks like there are other videos of her with the Apple Watch on in water, so it could have been waterproof up to a certain depth. But it seems odd that it was found on the beach, and it's my opinion, without having really anything. I feel like the whole story that Bryan Hooker has said about how they were in the dinghy and they that she fell out in bumpy water, I feel like that's a red herring. And I think that, in my opinion, is the opposite of what happened to her, because it could have been that he did something to her on land. I also feel like there's a possibility that they actually made it back to the boat and something could have happened on the boat, and then he had to go dispose of her body somewhere else. There are sharks in the area, and he would have known that because they've been here. They moved around that day between Aunt Pat's Bay and up by Abaco Inn. And so, he could have found the sharks in the area where they were and dumped her overboard there and ensure that she never was found. He also told emergency responders that morning, they asked her, what is she wearing so we can look for her? He said she's in a 2-piece black bathing suit. And when somebody says a 2-piece black bathing suit, you think of a bikini. Well, we've seen in pictures now that it's more of like a tankini, and she had on her aqua green jacket. So he never told anybody that she was wearing that bright green jacket, and it would have been very visible in the water. And even if she had been, gotten by the sharks, there would be material left. Okay. There could be shoes. She had probably some flip-flops on. You're not going to walk barefoot on a beach, on hot pavement. So I'm sure she had some flip-flops on, looked like she had sunglasses on. All those things are missing. And he states that it took him like 8 or 9 hours to float in that dinghy with an oar, okay, to that island. There's just no way that it took him 8, 9, 10 hours to float to that island, because the way that the wind was supposedly that night and how far away it is, the distance, it would have maybe taken 2 hours without an oar, without paddling. Okay. So there's a lot of time that's unaccounted for. The closeness of where they were, and to the boat, it just was very calm, and just the math isn't mathing here, people. Now, the daughter Carly did see a recording of them walking, that the Abaco Inn has them walking away. And I believe it's around 6:45-ish, somewhere around there. And again, it's bright light, very, very, very visible. Okay. Ashley Banfield stated she could be getting a suntan at that time. So the Abaco Inn was told by the local police not to share that. So we don't have any information that we can share off that video. They've got that one tied up. So luckily, people have been coming forward with their own personal, video and images, which is helpful to kind of put this together. But if anything, it's giving more proof that Bryan Hooker's story, there's just nothing accurate, nothing is making sense at all about what he's done. So like I mentioned, he has gotten an attorney in Michigan. Let's see if this is a video here. Yeah, let's watch this video and see what they have to say.
To an ABC exclusive interview with the attorney for Bryan Hooker, the American man who says his wife fell overboard during a trip to the Bahamas. She spoke with Victor Kendo. Good morning, Victor.
Good morning, George. With Bryan Hooker back in the United States, we sat down with his attorney to go over the case, ask about Bryan's relationship with Lynette's family, and see if he has any plans to return to the Bahamas. This morning, Bryan Hooker's lawyer speaking to GMA nearly 3 weeks after he says his wife of 25 years went overboard on their dinghy in the Bahamas and has not been seen since.
Would Bryan ever physically harm Lynette?
Absolutely not.
Hooker was detained for 5 days by Bahamian authorities, then released without charges in the disappearance of his wife, Lynette.
Given how much has been said about Bryan Hooker, is there anything that you would like the public to know, those who consider him guilty?
I would ask those watching to treat him the way you would want to be treated, to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Bryan speaking with me the morning after his release.
My only focus is to go back to the boat and then hire or beg people to help me go find some areas to search.
Bryan returned to the U.S. hours after that interview. His Bahamian attorney telling us he wanted to be with his terminally ill mother.
Does he have any plans to go back to the Bahamas to help with the search?
I imagine that is where his heart is, but I can't speak on whether or not that's what he will be doing.
Last week, Carly Aylesworth, Lynette's daughter, traveled to the Bahamas to retrace her mother's last steps, telling us she believes parts of her stepfather's story don't add up.
I don't understand how she drowned or got floated away. It just made me be more, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Why did that happen? So it answered some questions, but then it also arose more questions.
Carly telling us she met with the Coast Guard and Bahamian authorities, allowing her to visit the sailboat her mother and stepfather called home, the Soulmate.
This feels like something you just watch in a movie, but it's my life.
Carly and Lynette's mother, Darlene, have doubted Bryan's story from the beginning, saying Bryan and Lynette had a volatile and even violent relationship at times.
We all handle things in different ways, and be open-minded to the fact that just because Carly and Darlene are making these claims, there's absolutely no evidence to support any of the allegations. Absolutely none.
Wow.
When
Absolutely
describing the
none.
Hookers' relationship, his attorney telling us that everyone has their disagreements, but Bryan and Lynette appeared happy despite living a different type of life on a sailboat,
No.
relying solely.
I'm sorry, I wasn't born yesterday. And, you know, I agree everybody is innocent until proven guilty. But yeah. All right, let's see what this person has to say.
The Bahamas has hired a new attorney who's in West Michigan. Lynette Hooker has been missing since April 4th. Bryan Hooker was initially detained by police in the Bahamas, but not charged, and now he's back in the U.S. 13 on your side's Michael Martin has an update on the investigation and what his new attorney is saying about the case.
After Bryan Hooker walked out of the Central Police Station in Freeport, Bahamas, he said his next move was searching for Lynette. Instead, he was on a plane within about 24 hours, flying back to the United States. I spoke to his Bahamian attorney yesterday. She confirmed he was still here in the States. In fact, he has hired a lawyer stateside.
My only focus is to go back to the boat and then hire or beg people to help me go find some.
What a man.
That was Bryan Hooker just hours after
people.
Bahamian police let him walk free.
He's still asking about her and
Of course.
is hopeful that she will be recovered.
Oh my
Saying
God.
himself and through his Bahamian attorney, Terrell Butler, finding his wife of 25 years, Lynette Hooker, was his only priority.
I would ask those watching to treat him the way you would want to be treated, to give him the benefit of the doubt.
But Bryan Hooker is now back on U.S. soil, flying home just 24 hours after his release from the Freeport Central Police Station. And now, with a West Michigan attorney, there's still no clear answer on whether he'll return to the Bahamas.
I imagine that is where his heart is,
my
but I
God.
can't speak on whether or
His
not
heart.
that's what he will be doing.
Lynette's daughter, Carly Aylesworth, Bryan's stepdaughter, recently returned home to West Michigan from the Bahamas,
This feels like something you just watch in a movie, but it's my life.
traveling there in an effort to better understand what happened the day Bryan says Lynette fell overboard, never to be seen again.
It just made me be more, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Why did that happen?
Pretty much the
So
same reporting.
it answered some questions, but
You know, and I, you know, of course, everybody would want to, you know, treat somebody the same way that you would want to be treated. But I don't think that a normal person is going to act and do the things that he's done. So I don't think that that's fair. That's not apples to apples. It's apples to oranges. So yeah, if he wants to be treated the way that people would want to be treated, maybe he shouldn't have been really weird about, I'm sorry. It's just a bunch of hooey. So let's see. I pulled this one up. Is this one from this morning? Yeah, I think this is the picture. Hold on, bear with me. Here's a picture of them together. And I think this might be the
When they're
video.
fluttering again and they're dropping a little.
Oh,
That
this
is
is
not
wind.
a 30-knot wind. That is not even
This is how
like
windy it was. This
of
is from
information
that
he
day.
didn't need.
I don't think
Because
I'm
what
going to
Blaine-
watch this. This is not. And we've got some other Nancy Guthrie. Okay, so that is it. That is pretty much it from today as far as what we've got on Bryan Hooker. It's just crazy that I have crazy hair. Talk about crazy. I have crazy hair. Yeah, so he's got a new attorney. We don't have much more from Nancy Guthrie, but it looks like that, you know, honestly, looking back at the Nancy Guthrie, Chris Nano stuff, it looks like he hasn't done what the county supervisors asked him to do. He was supposed to have provided a sworn statement, and it appears that the letter that his attorney sent is not a sworn statement. So it looks like there's more to come, and it could be a delay tactic. So I will stay on Chris Nanos and the Nancy Guthrie and Lynette Hooker. I'm probably going to go watch that docuseries about Asa Ellerup. That is just nuts. I'm going to see what else is going on with that. And I do want to state tomorrow, I have an exclusive interview with an Oakland, California resident about the, Anya Hilliard. Let me say, I'm probably not saying that right, you guys. I just drew a blank. Hold on. Let me just say, I have an exclusive about Amy Hilliard. I said Anya. Amy Hilliard. I have an exclusive interview tomorrow with an Oakland resident. So please be sure to join me tomorrow afternoon. We're going to talk about all the different places and where she was seen last. It just does not make any sense. So please join me for that exclusive interview tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me for today's It's Crunch Time on Crime Crunchies. Again, I am your host, Courtney C., a 27-year veteran of the media. Please make sure to subscribe, like, and all those good things. But until next time with my live content, I will catch you on the flip side. Have a great day.